The Indian middle class has been facing a unique set of economic challenges that in some cases have led to a situation where their financial stability is perceived to be deteriorating faster than that of the lower class. This phenomenon can be attributed to several interrelated factors. First, let's discuss stagnant incomes and rising costs. Many in the Indian middle class have experienced stagnant wages over the past decade. In contrast, inflation has continued to rise, eroding purchasing power. Additionally, the costs of essential services such as education, healthcare, housing, and utilities have increased significantly. For instance, private schooling and healthcare, which many middle-class families prefer, have seen substantial cost hikes. Next, we look at education and employment mismatch. Higher education costs are soaring, and the middle class often prioritizes higher education for their children. Despite this investment, job markets do not always offer commensurate returns in terms of salaries or job security. Even with higher education degrees, many young professionals struggle to find well-paying jobs, leading to underemployment and job dissatisfaction. Debt and financial stress are also major issues. Middle-class families frequently resort to loans for housing, education, and consumer goods. With the rising interest rates and economic uncertainties, managing these debts has become increasingly challenging. The need to service debt and the high cost of living have resulted in lower savings rates. In the event of economic shocks, such as job loss or medical emergencies, middle-class families often find themselves financially vulnerable. Economic policies and taxation further complicate the situation. Middle-class individuals are often taxed at higher rates compared to lower-income groups with fewer subsidies and benefits. The introduction of Goods and Services Tax, or GST, has also impacted disposable incomes by increasing the cost of various goods and services. Economic reforms and policies aimed at fostering growth, such as demonetization and GST, have had mixed effects, often disproportionately affecting small businesses and salaried employees in the middle class. The impact of COVID-19 has been profound. The pandemic led to significant job losses and salary reductions, particularly in sectors heavily populated by the middle class, such as hospitality, retail, and small businesses. COVID-19 also underscored the inadequacies in the public healthcare system, forcing many middle-class families to incur high out-of-pocket expenses for private healthcare. Changing social dynamics also play a role. Middle-class aspirations often lead to lifestyle inflation, where increased earnings are quickly absorbed by enhanced living standards and consumerism, leaving little room for savings. The pressure to maintain a certain social status often compels middle-class families to spend beyond their means on housing, vehicles, and social functions. Now, let's look at the ground reality and comparative perspective. The lower class, while struggling with basic needs, benefits from various government welfare schemes, including subsidized food, free healthcare, and educational programs. These support systems provide a safety net that the middle class does not always have access to. Many in the lower class are part of the informal economy, which, despite its instability, allows for greater flexibility in earnings and lower living costs in rural or semi-urban areas. Middle-class families predominantly reside in urban areas where living costs are significantly higher than in rural areas, where lower-class individuals often live. This urban-rural divide exacerbates the financial strain on the middle class. In conclusion, the Indian middle class is facing a convergence of economic pressures that have led to a perceived and real decline in their financial well-being. This decline is driven by stagnant incomes, rising living costs, high debt levels, inadequate economic policies, and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. In contrast, the lower class, while still grappling with poverty, often benefits from government support and lower living costs. Addressing these challenges requires comprehensive policy interventions aimed at improving wage growth, reducing living costs, and providing greater economic security for the middle class.